What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are going to be taking a look at the game that got me into the top 100 last month. Not only that, but it's a pretty sweet game as well. Leading with Polywoggle in this first turn because we are up against Sharon, and Sharon has a few different units that Polywoggle can slay against. Happy Little Tree, Wizard's Familiar, Kitty Cutpurse, just to name a few. Those are all really good starting units for Sharon that do well with a buff or like to scale. And if we can slay with the Polywoggle, we've got the 4 Glory, but unfortunately my opponent is playing Unicorn. So that is going to mean that we don't get to slay with the Polywoggle. It also means that this 4 Glory is a lot worse, but I still want to cast it because I do want to pick up this Cinderella, because tier 2 treasures are really, really good on Trophy Hunter. There are just a lot of things that tier 2 treasures can do. They're potentially better on Trophy Hunter than they are on any other hero, maybe save Celestial Tiger, which can get double value out of all of those tier 2 treasures. But there's just a lot of really good tier 2 treasures, and we'll be looking at some of them later on in the game, but I'll talk about a few of them as well. The main one is going to be Monster Manual, so that you can start to scale your monsters, which are a lot of the units with Last Breath that you're going to be slaying with throughout the rest of the game. Let's turn our focus back to this combat. We get to pick up 2 things, and we're up against Sad Drac as well. So there is something kind of cool that we get to do in this one, and that is to play a Sacrificial Polywoggle, especially because it is 2.2. Basically, we frontline this Polywoggle, then we know it's going to get attacked, which means that we know we'll get to attack with our Sherwood Sure Shot. So they are... we're potentially going to be able to, or we're going to be giving them a slay. We're potentially still going to lose because we're playing down a unit effectively, because they're just going to gobble up this Polywoggle basically for free as a 1/1. But maybe the Sherwood Sure Shot can still aid us a little bit, though this opponent's pretty strong. Yeah, unfortunately, this one is going to be still a pretty big loss here. Taking a lot of damage. Sometimes Trophy Hunter does that. Everybody else has a hero power, and we still do not. But we can potentially find Tier 2 Treasure, which is pretty sweet. Picking up 2 different pairs here seems strong, and then we get to roll and try to find a triple on any of these. We don't hit, but we could get a slay off the Polywoggle as well. It's kind of awkward when you've got 2 Polywoggles always, because you're like, well, I'd like if one of them slays, but I'd also like to potentially triple this, so that way I can get an upgraded unit, and then it'll just be more likely to slay. But otherwise you wind up with like 1 Polywoggle slays and then 1 Polywoggle that just can't do anything. But maybe this can still be sweet for us, assuming Merlin isn't too strong yet. But Trophy Hunter can definitely take a lot of damage at the start of the game, and you do have to imagine Merlin's board is going to be bigger than this if they've cast any spells. And actually things are kind of looking up for us. They really haven't done too much. They just have these, what do you call them, Mad Mims? And they are going to just barely win this combat, but we're not going to take too much damage for it. We get a Tweedledee, and then we also get to triple the Bad Billy, and this is a really funny selection of treasures because it's basically all of the econ treasures that you could ever potentially ask for. This shop is good too because it also has a Mad Mim, which is super important and strong on our current board, and a Sherwood Sure Shot for another pair. But really interesting there to see 3 different econ tier 2 treasures with the bounty board, the piggy bank, and the spinning gold. And spinning gold is probably a little bit stronger for right this second, but bounty board is just busted board on Trophy Hunter and really, really strong. The Tweedle is also potentially going to be able to buy us some time, buy us some stats. It is a Last Breath. So if we're able to slay with it as well, that will give us a few more potential stats to work with on this Trophy Hunter. We're up against this Sharon again, so we'll see how much she has improved her board and if we are able to get a Polywoggle slay or not. They're actually going to take out our Tweedle, which is pretty awkward. We're 1 in 3 to slay with Polywoggle, and we miss. And we can see their unicorn is quite big now as well. The fact that my opponent's got all of these Mad Mims is also going to be making things a little bit tough. And then they also have this unicorn, which means that even the Sure Shot cannot take these sheep down. So pretty awkward stuff for us there, really. But we do get to put a Potion of Heroism on Polywoggle right now. And I do really like tier 4 units on Trophy Hunter, as well as just ticking into the Cindy. And I am going to pick up another Polywoggle. Basically what I can do now is I can put Polys in 1 and 2 and use that to make sure that like probably one of them is going to be able to slay, right? We also get to pick up Hermes Boots here, and that is just going to be another really, really good treasure on Trophy Hunter. It is one of the best treasures on Trophy Hunter because getting that first attack is just so crucial. If you can get that first attack, sometimes that's it. Sometimes that is the only attack that happens in that entire combat. So we'll see what slays we can get with Polywoggle. Still going for those slays right now because there's a lot of tier 4 units that we appreciate as Trophy Hunter. And there's really only one tier 5 unit that we really want to see, being Baba Yaga. But the fact that we have some boots does change things a little bit. It could mean that we only want to play one Polywoggle, but we'll still go for it here and see what happens because, like I said, we want to get those tier 4 units anyways. And unfortunately, both of our Polywoggles are going to fail to slay, and my opponent has a Trojan Donkey, and we're not going to be able to get past any of this. We are going to take a bunch of damage from this one. We take 12 damage and go down to 5. And our hopes of hitting top 100 are almost over until we see the shop. Friendly Spirit is really, really good on Trophy Hunter. Monster Book is also pretty fantastic, and so is the Sporco. Let's eeny meeny, because all of these options are good. So we get the eeny meeny on the Friendly Spirit, which is the best possible option for it to land on. So that is pretty sweet, and I'm definitely going to pick up another unit here, probably just this other Friendly Spirit, because if a Friendly Spirit lands on a Friendly Spirit, that's a whole bunch of stats, and that could be really good for us. And then I think I'm going to upgrade this Mad Mim into a Sporco, just to give our Friendly Spirits even a little bit more chance of attacking. And I also want this Monster Book too. So I am going to decide to, last second, see how we can pick up this Sporco. And I say, you know what, we've already got Bounty Board, we've already got Hermes Boots. We're going to have to break up some of these pairs in order to make this happen, but it's worth it. We're at 5 life points. We need to abandon these Polywoggles. We need to abandon these Sherwood Shore Shots, and this is what we go to. Now, one thing that's a little bit tricky with this is I still want to play Sherwood Shore Shot over the Mad Mim. Basically, I want to set it up so that my back row has really good units to receive the Friendly Spirit buff, and now every single one of my units takes a Friendly Spirit buff well, because it's either a unit with Last Breath, aka Slay, or it is a ranged unit. So this combat is going to work out really, really well for us. We've got a ton of stats now, as you can see, and we're going to get a pretty dominating win against an almost undefeated player. So that is quite the turnaround, to be last place beating up on first place so badly. And unfortunately, I don't want to tease you guys too long. This is not a puff game, but it is certainly something that you could consider, at least for a little bit, on Trophy Hunter. I think what I'm going to do here is, like, I'm really considering this True Love's Kiss. I could buy the Riverwash Mermaid from the shop and True Love's Kiss that. I could True Love's Kiss the Tweedle, because Tweedle's a little bit awkward. But the problem is it's so good for our current board that I do think that we need to keep the Tweedle. So I'm instead going to roll, and this Masquerade Ball just looks way too tempting. The fact that there's 3 5s in the shop that we get to look at is definitely just going to be too much to pass up. This is a little bit awkward because this is a game that does feature the Great Pumpkin King on Tier 5. Like I said, this game was played at the very end of January on January 31st. It was technically played February 1st after midnight local time, but that is going to mean that Pumpkin is a Tier 5 unit this game, but we don't make too much use of it. And basically, I just grabbed Pumpkin here because it's obviously way too strong to not pick up, but the Great Pumpkin is actually quite awkward with Trophy Hunter in general because it is potentially going to be able to steal Grimsoul procs and take away from the other really good slays that you want to be playing. But for this combat, it's just going to summon a Sporgo and a Spellweaver for us, so not too bad, all things considered. Friendly Spirit is going to be able to get in and get a Slay, so this is going to be a win, and my opponent's got 2 prized pigs as well, so this is going to be quite the bounty as we also get some cash from our bounty board. We're looking at a ton of cash here on 4.2, 16 gold to basically try to find some Grimsouls. That's really what we really need right now. Could consider the, oh yeah, and then also like Friendly Spirits monster books, the units that we are already playing. Think we take Moonsong Horn here because just really for the +1/+1. I mean, then I might as well cast like this Luna's Grace just to say that we cast a spell. I do something kind of silly here. I move the Pumpkin King to the front because maybe we can slay with Pumpkin King and get some value out of it that way. I'm not even sure if I wind up running it for this combat. I think that I might wind up changing it up because I do think, actually I remember what happens now. We wind up finding a Grimsoul right here, and then I want to support the Grimsoul with Baba Yaga and just give that a chance to slay. I then pick up a Golden Chicken to bring some econ into 5.0, try to find some more Baba Yagas. But basically, short of the Tweedle and Pumpkin, these are the units I want to be rocking going forward. And we're just going to try to find as many copies of all of these units as we can. We are lucky enough it was a 50-50 to get the Slay with Grimsoul, so we just don't want that to go on the Pumpkin. I want to cut this Pumpkin and Tweedle as soon as I can because you can see we summoned a Tweedledum. That really isn't super worth it for our time, but slaying with Friendly Spirit is obviously going to be a ton of stats, and then we're also going to be able to slay with Monster Book, and a slay with Tweedle coming up is going to be pretty strong too because it's going to summon a huge Tweedledum. So definitely cannot be too upset about that, getting the kill onto the Fates, but I really want to maximize the amount of times that we trigger Friendly Spirit because that's really what won that combat. So let's plan on cutting this Tweedle and Pumpkin and seeing what else we can find. Grim Souls, Friendly Spirits, Monster Books, Baba Yagas. Those are the cards that we're looking for here. Those are the characters that we are looking for. But you know what? Shadow Assassin is going to scale. It's going to be good. And it is important to have some scaling as well. I talked a little bit about Monster Manual. We don't have Monster Manual for this board, so we really don't have too much in the way of scaling. It would be nice to at least scale one unit, but of course, Grimsoul is really the one that we want to be scaling ultimately. I will take a Monster Book, and then I rub the Baba Yaga for good luck to try to find some more Baba Yagas, but we find another Monster Book? That's not too bad either. Don't think I want any of these treasures though, unfortunately, so we're just going to skip and roll, and then I think I'm going to buy this Nyan Sea Terror. There are good tier 5 treasures as well, as we'll see throughout the game, and I don't want to run Tweedle, and I don't want to run the Great Pumpkin King because I don't want Grimsoul triggering onto those units. Grimsoul is going to get a Slay though. The Hermes Boots definitely coming in clutch. And then we cast a whole bunch of spells on my opponent, and we do cast a Poison Apple right before we cast a Falling Stars and take out a unit in my opponent's backline. And one thing that we do kind of have for scaling, it's a little bit silly, but Monster Book will cast some Blessings of Athena to at least pump up the power of Friendly Spirit throughout some of these fights. So while a little bit silly, that is some kind of passive scaling for you. Just ultimately not like the best. Wretched Mummy, also pretty interesting, could potentially allow us to find Bad Moon or something too, but I think that we just want to use our cash on these tier 5 and tier 4 minions. I think I will pick up Shadow Assassin, but I don't really even need Mummy at this point, so not going to spend any gold on Mummy. Fortify on a Friendly Spirit is definitely good enough. I will spend 1 gold to give Friendly Spirit a doubled Friendly Spirit, some +4 health there. That is definitely worth it. And then we have the option of picking up Baba Yaga or picking up Grimsoul. I'm going to go for Baba Yaga to start with, because that way we get a treasure that we get to make use of. And now we get Mimic Chest plus Hermes Boots and Bounty Board. And I'm going to be locking the Grimsoul, but this is really, really good. Now we've got Mimic Chest, Hermes Boots, and like I said, Tier 2 treasures are the most powerful treasures that you can get on Trophy Hunter, so Mimic Chest just doubling up on some of those really, really powerful Tier 2 treasures is going to give us both really, really strong presence in the battle if the Grimsoul, even if it doesn't slay, but if it does slay, we just auto win half of these combats, and then we're going to walk away with a whole bunch of gold from the Mimic Chest Bounty Board. So we do get the slay there, and that triggers onto the Monster Book at first, which is just going to cast a whole bunch of spells, and then it's going to trigger onto the Friendly Spirit, and then it's going to trigger onto the Monster Book again and cast a few more spells there. So really, really good stuff. Oh, and then back to the Friendly Spirit. Yeah, we're just doing way too much. We're super extra here. The Friendly Spirit's going to even get in one more time, throw some more stats around, but this one is not close to being close. We're gonna have a Nyan Sea Terror in the hundreds taking out my opponent's Vampire to end it. But importantly, we've got 40 gold to work with on this turn. So let's see if we can't find some more Grimsouls. Don't really need, I'm probably just sticking with both of these Last Breath units for the rest of the game. I probably don't need Monster Book or Friendly Spirit at this point. So I think I'm really just looking for Grimsouls. And we find a Grimsoul here. This is sweet. No treasures that we really are even interested on Tier 4. There is still a Tier 5 treasure that I think we would take, and interestingly, rolling past XP there as well, because I do just want Tier 5s. I just want Baba Yaga and Nyan Sea Terror, as well as more Grimsouls. I don't have any interest in Jormungand's on this board. And before we see the treasures here for Nyan Sea Terror, sorry, this isn't super pretty of a screen. Let's roll back to this. We also pick up Wizard's Familiar, because that is some really good scaling. And that will, with all of the spells that we cast off of Monster Book, allow us to really grow that Wizard's Familiar and just have a huge unit that we could potentially be scaling. But there's part of me that doesn't want to run it at the same time, because I'm afraid that it's only a 1/1, and that's just not going to be big enough if we don't happen to get the Grimsoul triggering onto the Friendly Spirit. So a little bit awkward there, but I will pick up a Nyan Sea Terror, and we get another extremely, extremely powerful treasure. We get the Evil Eye, so I'm going to toss the Bounty Board for the Evil Eye, because it's a mimicked Evil Eye. A little bit awkward there, just low on time. This is basically like a Holy Grail turn, and that is how I am treating it, and I don't plan on getting rid of either of these treasures. I did see the Bad Moon in the shop, but I don't think that I want to get rid of either of these things. One thing that I should have done, though, was True Love's Kissed the Nyan Sea Terror. That probably would have been good, but my opponent starts with Earthquake, and that is going to trigger onto the Friendly Spirit, and that's just enough stats that we win the combat to begin with, and then the Friendly Spirit's going to be able to attack and just deliver a whole bunch more stats. And that's part of the reason I don't really feel like we needed Bad Moon with this comp. The main concern is always going to be getting that slay for the Grimsoul, but it's double Mimic Baba Yaga supported, so it has a pretty high attack value. It just died to Earthquake on this combat, but it should have been getting that slay regardless there, and we are going to get the kill onto Fallen Angel. But Yeah, I basically don't think that we need any more econ this game. The game's almost over, and there's just so much power that the Evil Eye Baba Yaga brings, and this is an interesting one. And now, like, I'm regretting not TLKing the 9C Terror, because what if we got an upgraded Good Boy with that? You can see I'm also, like, toying around with the idea of playing down a unit, which could certainly be good, and I do consider this Good Boy, but I think that we can potentially just increase the power of our board more in different ways, more just by finding more Baba Yagas, because it's tricky, right? If we play the Good Boy, we only have one other good unit. And because the Good Boy no longer pumps itself, it's just the Good Boy pumping the Friendly Spirit, which might not really be that much. Each trigger just gives the Friendly Spirit +2/+2. I think that if you have a board where you can play like a bunch of Friendly Spirits or multiple Good Boys, then things start to look pretty good for you. But with just one Good Boy, one Friendly Spirit, I think that this is definitely the best lineup that we can run. And 36 attack is what the Grimsoul has. I'll cast a spell on it if we can, but for right now, especially against the Ghost, it is certainly big enough. And one Slay to start the combat off is really going to be all that we need to make sure that we win this. And if the Sadrak defeats the Pied Piper, then we're basically in the finals already. So this is all going quite well, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about what we put together, especially coming back, from 5 life points and getting back into the game. I think that we put something quite strong together, and I think that this is, somewhat typical of Trophy Hunter. It's a little bit of a high roll because we got a little bit risky with it, but we were able to have some really, really spectacular turns, and this one included here against the Ghost. As long as we get that first attack, we would have had a ton of gold this turn with the bounty board. I didn't want to give up the boots, though. It's really tricky because, like, the boots doubled against the Sadrak. Like, it's so much to put into the boots to say, like, that's going to be one of our treasures. But the fact that the Sadrak is in this lobby means that doubled boots actually have more value than they normally would, because then we get to outspeed the Sadrak, who might otherwise also be relying on those boots, and just winds up being pretty powerful in general on Trophy Hunter. I generally don't like to toss the boots if I can find them, even for some scaling. And scaling this late, how much is it really going to matter anyways? I mean, probably a decent amount. We're doing a ton of slays, so scaling would be pretty good. The other thing that we can do, though, like, even if Grimsoul doesn't slay, we've still done a lot. And I think that's the important thing to realize, too, is the Grimsoul slaying is huge, because then it gets to slay a whole bunch more times. But even if it just dies, even if it just triggers that last breath, that is still going to be a whole bunch of slays on whatever other unit is supported, and is going to mean that you wind up having enough stats here anyways. So I think I've vamped for long enough, and now it is time to face off against the vamp of Sad Dracula. So we're going to be looking for any spells that could impact this combat, including Potion of Heroism and anything that could make our attack larger. One thing to note as we look at this other Wizard's Familiar here, it would be nice to have the Wizard's Familiar in for these fights, but I was just too nervous to do it, and felt like this board position represented a lot more power. Though if we were able to find like a Storm King right now, that would be really good. I don't even think I wind up checking the stats of, that's right, yeah, the stats of the Wizard's Familiar are nothing. But that would have been the last time that we could have found the Storm King. Now we really can't. Now we are just rolling down and the turn's over, and we gotta hope that we are good enough for the sad drac. I do slightly consider, like, okay, what if we played this just so that we could backline the Shadow Assassin? The slot 4 Shadow Assassin really doesn't do too much for us, but I think that this is going to be our strongest position regardless. We'll just play that extra Shadow Assassin, and we do get the Slay. We were 50-50 to Slay with our Grimsoul, and we get it. So now we are going to be monster booking them down, and that's probably all she wrote. The combat is probably already over, to be totally honest. Just casting a bunch of spells with the double Baba Yaga doubled because of the Evil Eye plus the Mimic Chest plus the 2 Baba Yagas sitting behind the Monster Book and the Golden Baba Yaga that was powering up that Grimsoul. We're going to cast a ton of spells. I'm not going to bother to do the math on that one. I know you guys appreciate it in the one Trophy Hunter video. I did the math, but it would just be too much to do it every time, I think, because this is Trophy Hunter, and Trophy Hunter's crazy. But you can see it is just a ton of slays and a ton of Baba Yaga supporting slays as well, and that's going to lead to a ton of spells because every time Monster Book triggers, it casts 2 spells, and that is going to be enough to take my opponent out there and some. We are going to continue to cast spells even after my opponent is totally done, and that is somewhat relevant. It does pump the Shadow Assassin as well as occasionally pumping the Friendly Spirit as well when we cast Blessings of Athena, but now the Friendly Spirit is just going off and pumping the rest of the team, and now we're casting more spells. You can see there's a few more Blessings in there too, as well as some For Glories, and that's not a horrible way to scale your board as well, all things considered. So now we're potentially looking for that Storm King and Baba Yaga. Both of those would be really nice additions to this comp, as well as maybe just like an additional Grimsoul. Baba Yaga doesn't really even do too much for us, but at that point we probably just play Babas in 6 and 7, Shadow Assassin in 5, then throw the Friendly Spirit and Monster Book in 3 and 4, and play Grimsouls in 1 and 2, potentially with a Storm King in 4, and move the Friendly Spirit over. So that is looking pretty good. We'll have to see. My opponent wasn't that strong. Maybe if they can find some Lordies and things, they would be able to outscale us. But this is absolutely crazy, and part of the fun of this video is just watching this all play out, and that's also why I didn't want to do the full breakdown, is I knew just how long just this combat was going to be. Fortunately, though, that's it. My opponent's not going to make us sit through it again. They've had enough. They had to sit through a ton of spells that they just wind up clicking the concede button, and we wind up getting first place. So writing was on the wall there, and that is going to be it for me for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will show that we got to 83rd place with 46-43, so that is what we were able to do by the end of this game. I'm going to try to do the same thing again this season, streaming some more games on Twitch, playing a little bit more. I've never really tried to climb on the ladder. This was honestly the first time I tried to do so. I normally just get to 4,000 and sit there. And in the last 2 days of the season, I figured, I'll try to climb up a little bit. And I wound up getting to, I actually got a little bit higher than this. I peaked at about 46.90, and that was what my peak was on last season. But I think if I put a little bit more effort into it, we can go even farther. Let's back up and just show this screen as I'm talking here, and yeah, just try to place high on the leaderboard, maybe try to break 5K as well. And you can follow along for some of that journey on twitch.tv/NoLucksGiven as well if you want to catch me live. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.